Hey guys, Indy with Ultimate Tool Reviews here. I want to talk about battery adapters. And of course, many people have seen battery adapters. They are actually pretty useful in most cases. Now, I've had some good experiences and some bad experiences with battery adapters. Doesn't really depend on the brand of tool used or even the brand of battery the tool is used on, but really it's the type of tool they're using the battery adapter for. So I've got a few tools in front of me. I've got a mid-torque DeWalt half-inch impact wrench. It's going to work just fine with a battery adapter. Unless you're driving legs all day long with it, you might have some issues here and there. But for the most part, tools that are like drills, impacts, you're really not going to have too big of an issue with when it comes to battery adapters with these tools. As long as you're not using maybe like a hammer drill, or you're mixing mud, or doing some really intense drilling, you should be totally fine with a battery adapter. Where you start running into issues with battery adapters though, and this is where I've had issues, is when you start using battery adapters on higher drain tools, like say a reciprocating saw, circular saws here and there, depending on what you're using them for and how long you're using them. Things like chainsaws as well can fall into that category. And what I actually had was I had a Milwaukee M18 Sawzall that I was actually running a DeWalt battery pack on. And what's cool about these battery adapters is they actually work on both the DeWalt tools here and Milwaukee tools. They actually do both, which is pretty cool. And what happened was when I was using that recip saw was the battery started to overheat, and because in these battery adapters, they just give positive and negative power. They don't actually have any communication like all the other batteries do. So if you have a DeWalt battery with a DeWalt tool, there actually is going to be some communication there. As you can see, we've got 4 pins. However, though, when you're using a adapter like these, you're really only using 2 pins. As you can see here, it's only connecting 2 pins to the battery, and that's all the tool is going to see. So of course, any tool will pretty much still work for the most part, but you won't get any communication between the battery and the tool. So the tool is not going to be able to communicate with the battery and vice versa about heat, overload protection, a few things like that that can cause a lot of issues really fast. So back to my story about that Milwaukee M18 Sawzall I was using with a battery adapter and a DeWalt battery. What ended up happening was the battery adapter basically started melting right around the positive terminal, and it actually fried the battery and the battery adapter. Look, the tool was okay. I never had an issue with the tool after that. But that was the last time I used a battery adapter with anything that was really high drain, high output tools. But if you're looking to buy a battery adapter to say, maybe pick up like a cheaper tool you don't necessarily need all the time, and I'll show you an example here of a tool that I've got that I use a battery adapter for. I've got this Ryobi chainsaw, and I don't really have a lot of Ryobi batteries. I've got just a handful, but I'm using a battery adapter for a Makita battery here. And it's useful because I'm not really using this chainsaw super heavy too much. I'm just using it to maybe do a few small limbs here and there. Maybe using it for 5 minutes at a time, not a big deal. And it's worked totally fine for this. I don't really have a concern about frying the battery or the battery adapter using this tool. But anything else that's really high output that you're going to use pretty heavily for, I'd say, prosumer, professional contractor use, I would definitely avoid using a battery adapter and go with actually using the batteries for that tool. But if you're using weekend warrior stuff, DIY, maybe you are a contractor who needs to use one tool once in a while and you don't want to necessarily invest in the batteries for it, and it's also not a very high drain tool, I would say go for it. I haven't had any issue with smaller tools. I've never burned up a drill or an impact trying different battery adapters. But I don't really use them too much anymore. I've been definitely investing in a lot of different battery lines now, doing more tool reviews. So I haven't been using them too much anymore, but I still keep plenty around just for fun and to see what works with them as well. And definitely to see any other strange things that happen with battery adapters for the most part. The only issue that I've seen with battery adapters not working are some of the new Hart tools. Actually have a communication pin that seems to be actually has to work in order for that tool to even work with a battery. So that's the only brand that I've seen that's actually starting to give issues with battery adapters. I bought the Hart RC truck. Got a few videos of that earlier in the channel, and that won't work with any battery adapters, unfortunately. From doing research on that one, you have to buy Hart batteries for that to actually work, which is kind of a bummer because I only have 2 amp-hour batteries, and that burns through them pretty quick in the Hart RC truck. But other than that, Milwaukee, DeWalt, Makita, Ryobi, there's a lot of battery adapters that'll work for those tools. And what got me into using battery adapters actually was the Bauer tools from Harbor Freight. Some of the outdoor tools actually had right in the tool area here, we put the battery in, there was a little black pin that you could take a razor blade and cut off, and you could actually slide a DeWalt 20-volt battery right into that tool then, and it would work just fine. No adapter even needed. And that was a pretty cool thing that I discovered there, because I already had plenty of DeWalt batteries at the time, and I was looking for just a couple of cheap outdoor tools to solve a few issues I was having, and that Bauer works really well, just cutting that one pin off, and it worked fantastic. Of course, I later got some other Makita tools later on as I got a little bit larger yard, moving up and need some more powerful tools. But in conclusion, battery adapters, yeah, definitely use caution when using them. I don't necessarily recommend them all the time, depending on the tools that you need to use. If you're using just a tool once in a while, it's not going to be for super heavy use. It's not a high drain tool. I'd say, go for it, give it a shot. But of course, monitor that tool and make sure you're not overheating the battery or overheating the leads in that battery adapter. But if you're using a tool professionally, using it pretty heavily, it's going to be definitely, you're using batteries very quickly with that tool, definitely don't use a battery adapter at all in that tool. So leave some suggestions in the comments, guys. You got any comments? And let me know for the other video ideas. And take care, guys.